Halloween myths that will shock you. Halloween. For most people, it's a night of costumes, candy, and playful scares. But behind the glowing jack-o'-lanterns and cheerful trick-or-treaters lurks something much darker. Halloween is soaked in myths, stories whispered for centuries, tales that warn of curses, spirits, and even death itself. Some of these myths are nothing more than spooky legends, but others? They're rooted in disturbing truths that have haunted people for generations. This is Hey Spooky on YouTube, and tonight, I'm going to take you on a chilling countdown through the most terrifying Halloween myths that will shock you. From cursed rituals to stories that ended in real-life tragedy, each one is darker than the last. And trust me, you might never look at Halloween night the same way again. But before we start the countdown, let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered why people fear black cats on Halloween? Why kids are warned never to eat candy from strangers? Or why some people refuse to even step outside when the clock strikes midnight on October 31st? These myths aren't just stories, they're warnings. Passed down through generations, wrapped in blood, superstition, and mystery. And by the end of this video, you'll see why Halloween has earned its reputation as the most haunted night of the year. So lock your doors, dim the lights, and get ready for number 10 on our list. Because once you hear these myths, you'll never forget them. Number 10, the Black Cat Curse. For centuries, black cats have been wrapped in mystery, fear, and superstition. On Halloween night, their image appears everywhere, on decorations, costumes, and spooky art. But there's a reason people whisper warnings about crossing paths with a black cat. Some believe it's a sign of bad luck, while others think it's a direct encounter with the supernatural. The origins of this myth go all the way back to the Middle Ages in Europe. Back then, black cats weren't just seen as pets. They were considered companions of witches, familiars that carried dark magic. The church warned people that witches could transform themselves into cats at night, sneaking unseen through villages. And if you happened to spot a black cat lurking near your home, it wasn't just a coincidence. It was said to be a witch watching you. This belief grew stronger during the witch trials of the 16th and 17th centuries. Entire communities were terrified of black cats. Owning one could be enough to brand you as a witch, and many were killed out of superstition. In some areas, black cats were even burned alive on Halloween night as part of rituals to ward off evil spirits. To people of the time, the cat's glowing eyes in the dark weren't just natural. They were a symbol of the devil staring back at you. But the myth didn't end in the past. In fact, it followed us into modern times. To this day, shelters across America often refuse to allow black cats to be adopted during October, especially near Halloween. Why? Because there have been countless disturbing reports of cruelty, ritual killings, and even occult groups using them in dark ceremonies on Halloween night. What was once just a superstition has left behind very real scars. At the same time, there's an eerie twist. In many cultures, black cats aren't seen as evil, but as protectors. In ancient Egypt, they were sacred to the goddess Batat. In Japanese folklore, black cats are said to bring good fortune. Even sailors once believed a black cat on board a ship could protect them from storms. Yet in Western culture, especially in America and Europe, the darker side of the myth has stuck, especially when October 31st comes around. Imagine this, it's Halloween night. You're walking down a dimly lit street, decorations glowing in orange and red, when suddenly, a black cat darts across your path. Your heart skips a beat. You tell yourself it's nothing, just an animal. But somewhere deep down, that old myth whispers, something bad is about to happen. Whether you believe it or not, the fear still lingers centuries after the myth began. That's what makes the Black Cat Curse so chilling. It's not just a story. It's a superstition powerful enough to influence real behavior. Even today, people cross the street to avoid them. Shelters lock their doors to protect them. And on Halloween night, they become living symbols of fear itself. So the next time you see a black cat staring at you on Halloween, ask yourself this: is it just a harmless animal? Or is it something darker, watching you, waiting to cross your path? Number 9. The Curse of Bloody Mary. Few Halloween myths are as famous or as terrifying as the legend of Bloody Mary. It's a game kids dare each other to play, usually at midnight, in front of a bathroom mirror. You turn off the lights, hold a candle, and whisper her name 3 times. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. And then you wait. Some say her ghostly figure will appear in the mirror, her face twisted in blood and rage. Others claim she'll scratch your skin, pull you into the mirror, or curse you with death. The details change depending on where you hear the story, but one thing stays the same: the sense of dread when the ritual begins. The origins of Bloody Mary are foggy and unsettling. Some historians trace the myth back to Queen Mary I of England, nicknamed Bloody Mary for the brutal execution she ordered during her reign in the 1500s. Others believe the myth grew out of older European mirror superstitions. Mirrors were once thought to be gateways between the world of the living and the dead. Breaking one was said to trap your soul, and staring into one too long could allow spirits to cross over. By the 20th century, the legend had taken hold in America. Children whispered about it on playgrounds and sleepovers, passing it down like a ritual. Halloween became the perfect time to test your courage. The game wasn't just about summoning a ghost. It was about confronting fear itself. But here's where things get even creepier. Countless people swear they've seen something. Some describe a pale woman's face staring back at them, even when they were alone. Others report hearing whispers, footsteps, or the flicker of lights in the mirror. And in some chilling cases, people say they walked away with scratches that weren't there before. Psychologists often explain this phenomenon as a trick of the brain. When you stare into a mirror in low light for too long, your mind can distort your reflection, making your own face look monstrous. But believers argue this doesn't explain the physical marks, the voices, or the overwhelming sense of dread people feel. Could it be mass hysteria? Or does the mirror ritual really open a door best left closed? On Halloween night, when the veil between the living and the dead is said to be thinnest, the legend feels even more dangerous. Imagine standing alone in the dark, candlelight flickering, staring into your reflection, whispering her name. Would you dare? That's the power of the Bloody Mary myth. It preys on one of humanity's oldest fears. What happens when we look too closely into the unknown, and the unknown looks back? Number 8. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. Imagine this. It's a cold October night, the kind where fog clings to the road and every shadow feels alive. You're driving home, headlights cutting through the darkness, when you see her, a young woman standing by the side of the road. She's pale, wearing a light dress, maybe shivering from the chill. She looks harmless, lost, maybe even desperate. You slow down. Against your better judgment, you stop and offer her a ride. She smiles faintly, thanks you, and quietly slips into the back seat. For a while, the drive is silent, but eventually, you ask where she's going. Her answer is simple, sometimes just a street name, sometimes a vague home. You nod, relieved you can help. But then it happens. You glance into the rearview mirror, and she's gone. The seat is empty. No door ever opened. No sound of footsteps fading into the night. Just silence. This chilling encounter is the heart of the Vanishing Hitchhiker myth, one of the most famous ghost stories in America and beyond. Though it's often told on Halloween, the tale has deep roots, going back centuries in folklore. In many versions, the driver later learns the horrifying truth. The girl they picked up died years earlier on that very stretch of road, often in a tragic car accident. Sometimes she's described as a bride-to-be killed on her wedding night, sometimes as a young woman murdered on her way home. Always, she's a spirit doomed to wander, replaying her last journey over and over. Folklorists trace this story back to the early 20th century, when automobiles became common. Tales of ghostly hitchhikers began appearing all over the world, in the US, Mexico, Europe, even Asia. Each culture adds its own twist, but the pattern remains eerily the same: a stranded stranger, a ride, and an unexplained disappearance. Some skeptics argue the story is pure urban legend, designed to scare teenagers driving late at night. Others suggest psychological explanations. Maybe drivers drift into a half-dream state on long, dark roads, their minds creating illusions. But here's the thing. Too many people swear they've experienced it. Real people, shaken and pale, insisting they drove someone who simply wasn't there anymore. And perhaps the most terrifying detail? In certain versions, the hitchhiker actually leaves something behind: a scarf, a code, or even a name whispered on the wind. When the driver later investigates, they find the item belongs to someone long dead. On Halloween night, when spirits are said to roam freely, the vanishing hitchhiker becomes more than just a story. It feels like a warning. A reminder that sometimes the shadows on the roadside aren't empty. Sometimes they're waiting for you to stop. So next time you're driving home in the dead of night and see someone standing by the road, will you keep driving? Or will you stop and risk never being alone again? Number 7. The Candyman and Poison Halloween Candy. Halloween has always carried whispers of danger. Parents warn their children not to take candy from strangers, to check every wrapper, to never eat anything homemade. But why? The myth that poisoned or tampered Halloween candy is lurking in your trick-or-treat bag has been around for decades. At its core is the terrifying idea that someone, somewhere, is waiting to hurt children on the one night of the year when they are most vulnerable. And what makes this myth so powerful is that it isn't just a story, it's tied to a real-life tragedy. On Halloween night in 1974, in Deer Park, Texas, an 8-year-old boy named Timothy O'Brien went trick-or-treating with his father, Ronald O'Brien, and his younger sister. Like thousands of kids across America, they ran door to door, laughing, filling their bags with sweets. Later that night, Timothy unwrapped the pixie sticks, a brightly colored straw filled with flavored sugar. Moments after eating it, he collapsed. His lips turned blue. He convulsed. He was rushed to the hospital, but tragically died within the hour. The cause? Cyanide. Investigators later uncovered the horrifying truth. The poison wasn't slipped in by a stranger, it was his own father. Ronald O'Brien, who would go down in history as the Candyman, had laced several pixie sticks with cyanide in a twisted attempt to collect life insurance money on his children. He gave poison candy not only to Timothy, but also to his daughter and several other kids in the neighborhood. Thankfully, none of the others ate theirs. The case shocked the nation and cemented the myth that Halloween candy could kill. News reports ran wild. Parents panicked. Every wrapper was suddenly suspect. For years afterward, police stations offered to x-ray candy bags, and parents spread the warning. Check every piece before you let your kids eat it. But here's the chilling part. The truth behind the myth is darker. Despite countless warnings and legends about strangers handing out poison candy, almost no cases exist outside of the O'Brien tragedy. Most reports of tainted treats have turned out to be hoaxes or rare isolated incidents. So why does this myth endure? Because it hits at a primal fear that the things meant to bring us joy could be turned into instruments of death. That even in moments of innocence, like trick-or-treating, evil can hide in plain sight. Today, nearly 50 years later, parents still check candy bags, still cut open chocolate bars, still fear the unknown. Ronald O'Brien was executed in 1984, but the story he left behind continues to haunt Halloween. And every October, when you hear the crinkle of a candy wrapper, you might wonder, what if? Number 6. The Curse of the Jack-o'-lantern. When you picture Halloween, one image always comes to mind. The glowing jack-o'-lantern sitting on porches, its eerie grin lit by a flickering candle. But behind this festive decoration lies a legend far darker than most people realize. A tale of trickery, curses, and spirits that refuse to rest. The myth of the jack-o'-lantern comes from old Irish folklore, and it all begins with a man known as Stingy Jack. Jack was a drunken, selfish trickster who spent his life deceiving everyone around him. But one fateful night, he pulled a prank on the devil himself. As the story goes, Jack invited the devil to have a drink with him. When it came time to pay, Jack didn't want to spend his own money. Instead, he convinced the devil to transform into a coin so Jack could use it to buy the drinks. But instead of paying, Jack slipped the coin into his pocket next to a silver cross, trapping the devil so he couldn't change back. Jack eventually freed him, but only after extracting a promise that the devil would never claim his soul. The devil agreed, and Jack went on living his life of lies and sin. Years later, when Jack finally died, he tried to enter heaven, but was turned away because of his wicked deeds. He turned to hell, but the devil kept his word and refused him entry. With nowhere to go, Jack was doomed to wander the earth forever. The devil, mocking him one last time, tossed him a single burning coal. Jack placed it inside a hollowed-out turnip to carry through the darkness. From that day forward, people called him Jack of the Lantern, or simply Jack-o'-lantern. Immigrants carried the legend to America, where pumpkins replaced turnips and carving glowing faces became a Halloween tradition. But the myth didn't stop there. Some believed that placing a jack-o'-lantern outside your home could ward off evil spirits, including Jack himself. Others whispered that if the lantern ever went out, it would invite darkness into your home, and perhaps even stingy Jack, wandering in search of warmth. Over time, the cheerful pumpkin grin became commercialized, a safe and familiar image of Halloween. But think about it. Every time you light a jack-o'-lantern, you're reenacting a curse. You're holding back the restless soul of a man trapped between heaven and hell. And if you let the candle die out, who's to say Jack isn't still walking, waiting for the moment your light goes dark? The jack-o'-lantern is more than decoration, it's a warning. Halloween night is the one time of year when the veil between the living and the dead is thin. That smiling face on your porch isn't just for fun. It might be the only thing keeping the shadows from stepping inside. Number 5. The haunted mirror ritual. Halloween has always been tied to rituals, games that blur the line between fun and the supernatural. One of the most chilling myths, whispered for generations, involves mirrors, spirits, and a glimpse into a future you might not want to see. This story dates back to the 18th and 19th centuries, when Halloween was not just about costumes and candy, but also about divination. People believed that on All Hallows' Eve, the veil between the living and the dead grew thin, allowing spirits to slip through. Young women in particular played mirror games, hoping to catch a glimpse of their future husbands. The ritual sounded innocent enough. Stand in front of a mirror at midnight, holding a candle, sometimes with an apple in hand. They believed that if they stared long enough, the face of their future husband would appear in the glass. But just as often, the mirror revealed something much darker. Some claimed that instead of a lover's face, a skull would appear, an omen that the girl would die before marriage. Others swore that shadowy figures would move in the background of the reflection, whispering warnings no one could understand. And in rare, terrifying accounts, the mirror did not show the girl's reflection at all, but left it empty, as if her soul had slipped away. By the early 20th century, stories of Halloween mirror games shifted from fortune-telling to pure horror. Children began daring each other to perform a ritual with a different name, Bloody Mary. According to the myth, if you stand in a dark room, stare into a mirror, and chant her name 3 times, a vengeful spirit will appear. Sometimes she shows you your death, sometimes she scratches your face, and sometimes she pulls you into the mirror with her. Psychologists explain it as the Troxler effect, where staring too long into a mirror causes your brain to distort your own reflection. But try telling that to the kids who ran screaming from the bathroom during a Halloween sleepover, swearing they saw bloody eyes staring back. The myth spread so widely that even schools banned mirror games around Halloween, warning children not to summon something they couldn't control. But that only made the dare more tempting. After all, what's scarier than staring at your own reflection, waiting for it to blink when you don't? Even today, countless people still test the ritual. Some record themselves chanting, hoping to catch proof on camera. Others refuse to even look in a mirror on Halloween night, afraid that just a glance is enough to let something cross over. Because the real terror isn't whether you'll see a ghost. It's the thought that your reflection isn't really you, and that when you look away, it might not follow. So the next time you find yourself in a dimly lit room on Halloween, with only a mirror and a candle, ask yourself, do you really want to know who or what is staring back? Number 4. The cursed jack-o'-lantern. Pumpkins glowing on porches might look harmless, but behind every flickering grin is a story rooted in something far darker than Halloween fun. The jack-o'-lantern tradition began centuries ago in Ireland, long before pumpkins were even part of the picture. Back then, people carved turnips into grotesque faces to ward off spirits. And at the heart of it all was a myth about a man so wicked that even hell rejected him. His name was Stingy Jack. According to the legend, Jack was a cunning drunk who tricked the devil not once, but several times. In one tale, Jack lured the devil into climbing a tree, then carved crosses into the bark so he couldn't come down. In another, he convinced the devil to shapeshift into a coin to pay for drinks, but then trapped him inside his pocket with a crucifix. Each time, Jack forced the devil to swear he wouldn't take his soul to hell. But when Jack finally died, Heaven didn't want him either. Too sinful for paradise, too tricky for damnation, Jack was cursed to wander the earth forever. The devil, keeping his twisted promise, tossed Jack a burning coal as a cruel gift. Jack placed it inside a hollowed turnip, using it as a lantern to light his endless path. From then on, he became known as Jack of the Lantern, or simply Jack-o'-lantern. For centuries, people carved their own turnip lanterns to keep Jack and other restless spirits away. When Irish immigrants came to America, they discovered pumpkins, larger, easier to carve, and eerily perfect for the ritual. That's how the grinning orange faces we know today became a Halloween staple. But behind the cheerful glow lies a darker side of the myth. Old superstitions warn that a jack-o'-lantern carved incorrectly, say, with too few cuts, or with the flame left to burn out before midnight, doesn't protect your home. Instead, it acts like a beacon, calling spirits directly to your doorstep. Some stories say Jack himself can slip through, searching for a replacement soul to trade for his own. Others tell of cursed pumpkins that wouldn't rot, no matter how long they sat on the porch. Farmers swore that when they tried to destroy these lanterns, the faces wept real tears, and the flames inside refused to die. And on rare occasions, people whispered of pumpkins glowing on their own. No candle inside, no match lit, just an unnatural fire, flickering from within. Modern skeptics dismiss the cursed jack-o'-lantern as just folklore, but even today, some families keep the tradition alive with a twist. They never blow out their jack-o'-lantern candles. Instead, they let the flame die naturally, believing it's the only way to ensure Jack doesn't come knocking. So the next time you see a crooked smile glowing on a porch, remember the story it hides. That pumpkin might not just be a decoration. It could be a warning, a flicker of light for a spirit wandering in the dark, forever searching for company. Number 3, Bloody Mary and the Haunted Mirror. Every Halloween, kids dare each other to do it. Lights off, candle lit, standing in front of a mirror, chanting the same name 3 times. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. The story goes that if you do this at midnight, a ghostly woman will appear in the mirror. Some say she'll just stare back at you with hollow, bleeding eyes. Others claim she'll reach through the glass, her icy hands clawing at your face. And in the darkest versions, she drags you straight into the mirror world, where no one ever sees you again. But where does this terrifying ritual come from? The myth of Bloody Mary has roots that stretch back centuries, tangled between folklore and superstition. Some say she was once Queen Mary I of England, known as Bloody Mary for her violent persecution of Protestants. Others argue she was Mary Worth, a witch executed in colonial America, her spirit trapped between worlds after a violent death. And some whispers claim she was just an ordinary woman, betrayed and murdered, her soul forever restless, searching for revenge. The one thing these tales agree on, she's angry, and she hates being summoned. Halloween made the Bloody Mary ritual especially popular because of its connection to mirrors. In folklore, mirrors weren't just glass, they were gateways. People believed reflections could trap spirits, or worse, reveal glimpses of the dead. That's why some families covered their mirrors after a loved one passed, fearing the soul might get stuck inside. Combine that superstition with Halloween's thinning veil between the living and the dead, and you get the perfect setup for the Bloody Mary dare. The rules of the ritual vary. Some say you need total darkness except for a candle. Others demand you spin around 3 times before speaking her name. A few versions claim you'll see your future husband instead of a ghost, if you're lucky. But if you're unlucky, it won't be a husband staring back at you. It'll be her. There are countless urban legends of kids who tried it and swore they saw something. A flash of red in the glass. Scratches across their face they couldn't explain. Some even reported mirrors cracking in front of them, the shards scattering as though something tried to break through. Psychologists explain the phenomenon as something called the strange face illusion. Staring into a mirror too long in dim light can make your brain distort your reflection. Faces warp, shadows move, and your own features seem to transform into something inhuman. It's science, but try telling that to the kid who swears he saw Bloody Mary's face grinning back at him. To this day, Bloody Mary remains one of the most chilling Halloween myths, a dare whispered at sleepovers and school hallways, always with the same warning. Don't do it alone, And whatever you do, don't break eye contact with the mirror. Because once she finds you, some say she never really goes away. Number 2, the candy killer. For decades, parents have whispered the same warning every Halloween. Check your child's candy. The fear is always the same, that some evil stranger out there is tampering with Halloween treats. Razor blades hidden in chocolate bars, needles slipped into candy apples, or, worst of all, brightly wrapped sweets laced with poison. The idea of the Halloween candy killer has become so widespread that it's now one of the most infamous urban legends of the holiday. But where did it begin? The myth traces back to the mid-20th century, when isolated reports of contaminated treats spread like wildfire. Newspapers fueled the fear, publishing headlines about supposed sick children and dangerous candy. Parents began frantically checking every piece of Halloween loot, snapping candy bars in half, peeling back wrappers, and even throwing away homemade goodies altogether. And yet, when researchers looked back, they found that almost all of those stories were just rumors, except for one chilling case that turned the myth into reality. In 1974, in Deer Park, Texas, an 8-year-old boy named Timothy O'Brien went trick-or-treating with his family. Hours later, after eating a pixie sticks he had gotten that night, Timothy collapsed. The candy had been filled with cyanide. The culprit wasn't a stranger. It was his own father, Ronald O'Brien, who had poisoned the candy in a life insurance scheme. That one horrifying crime cemented the myth forever. Even though cases of random strangers poisoning Halloween candy are virtually non-existent, the paranoia spread like wildfire. Every Halloween, police departments issue warnings. Parents inspect candy as if their child's life depends on it. And kids whisper urban legends of razor blades lodged deep inside chewy candy bars. There are also dozens of alleged stories, like apples spiked with razor blades or candy bags containing hidden drugs, that pop up every year. Most of these end up being hoaxes or urban myths repeated so often they feel real. Still, the idea lingers, and that fear has become part of the holiday itself. Psychologists say this myth thrives because it preys on our deepest anxieties. We trust strangers with something as innocent as candy, and Halloween blurs the line between safety and danger. The thought that evil could be hiding under a harmless candy wrapper is enough to make anyone uneasy. But here's the creepiest part. Every Halloween, there are still scattered reports of suspicious candy being turned over to police. Some are proven hoaxes, some are never explained. And every year, thousands of parents keep checking, keep cutting open wrappers, keep fearing that this time, it might be real. The candy killer may be more myth than fact, but it's one of the most terrifying Halloween legends because it asks the question no parent wants to face. How do you protect your child from something that looks so sweet? Number 1. The real monsters behind the mask. Halloween is a night built on costumes, masks, and make-believe. Kids dress as ghouls and witches, adults throw on elaborate disguises, and everyone embraces the thrill of pretending to be someone or something else. But lurking underneath this playful tradition is one of the darkest and most terrifying myths of all. What if the monsters walking the streets on Halloween aren't just in disguise? For decades, stories have circulated of killers, predators, and criminals who used Halloween night and its sea of masks to hide their true identities. After all, what better night is there to vanish into the crowd than one where everyone is anonymous? One of the most infamous cases tied to this myth happened on Halloween night, 1975, in New York. A man named Ronald Sisman and his girlfriend were brutally murdered in their apartment. The crime scene was savage, and whispers began to spread that the attack had something to do with Halloween rituals, possibly even cult activity. Some witnesses claimed to have seen masked figures near the apartment that night. To this day, the crime remains unsolved, fueling speculation that Halloween disguises were the perfect cover. Then there are the countless chilling reports of real crimes happening under the veil of costumes. Home invasions where attackers dressed as trick-or-treaters, assaults committed by people who were never identified because their faces were hidden behind masks. This myth thrives because it feels too possible. Halloween gives everyone a mask, and with that mask comes freedom. The freedom to do terrible things and never be recognized. Parents warn their children to stay close, to only visit trusted houses, to never wander too far in the dark. In some towns, Police ramp up patrols on Halloween, not just because of pranks or mischief, but because criminals have genuinely used the holiday as camouflage. It's the one night a stranger knocking at your door, wearing a mask, doesn't immediately raise suspicion. What makes this myth even scarier is how it blurs the line between legend and truth. Yes, most people celebrating Halloween are there for fun, candy, and scares. But sprinkled throughout history are those rare, chilling moments where someone exploited the holiday's playful chaos for something horrifyingly real. So, when you're out on Halloween night, surrounded by costumed figures, witches, skeletons, clowns, demons, ask yourself, how many of them are just pretending? And how many are hiding something far, far darker? Because at the end of the day, the scariest monsters aren't the ones carved into pumpkins or painted on masks. The real monsters walk among us.